I'm gonna split this video into 3 sections. Part 1, I'm gonna be talking about my top 20 of the year. Part 2, I'll talk about the rest of the films I saw, and then Part 3, I will be talking about the TV shows I watched and the video games that I played. Number 20 on my list is Jojo Rabbit. I was really hyped up for this film when it was coming out. I thought Hitler being an imaginary friend to this kid was funny at first. When I watched the movie though, the comedy just didn't land for me and I slowly started to lose interest. Number 19 is High Life. When this film was released, I had no idea what it was. It didn't have a large marketing campaign, so it kind of went under my radar. I wish the dialogue writing had been a bit better, and some of the performance was shoddy, but overall this film had a really original story and a great atmosphere. For number 18, we have Dolomite Is My Name. This was the most entertaining film I've seen all year, and it's just nice seeing Eddie Murphy back. Number 17 is Ad Astra, yet another space film on this list, but another great one. This film was visually stunning, and the story held my interest throughout. Brad Pitt was perfect, and the direction by James Gray was great. A lot of people didn't enjoy this, and I can see why. It's a very slow film, and it doesn't hold your hand throughout the story. Number 16 is El Camino. El Camino follows the ending of Breaking Bad. Of course, like the show, the acting, cinematography, and music choice are all perfect. Number 15, we have Ready or Not. This was a very entertaining movie. The jokes landed for me a lot of the time and it never really ruined the tension. I was slightly disappointed of this film due to the number of people hyping it up and calling it a masterpiece, but the gore was pretty good and I really enjoyed myself with this one. Number 14 is Us. This is Jordan Peele's sophomore film, and it was quite an upgrade from his first. Although the twist at the end I think is pretty dumb, but it didn't really take away from the rest of the movie. Number 13 is Joker. I really liked this film the first time I saw it. It sort of blew me away with its deep story and great acting from Joaquin Phoenix. But then when I saw it again, I wasn't feeling the same as I had on my initial watch. Quite honestly, I'm getting a little sick of this film. That doesn't mean I hate this film. It's just, it really declined in quality for me on a second watch. Joaquin Phoenix is still great, and so is the direction by Todd Phillips, but for right now, this film is just okay when it's compared to the rest of these films. Number 12 is Booksmart. I thought this film was very funny, and I had a great time with it. All I can really say is believe the hype. Number 11 is John Wick 3. Parabellum is the most action-packed in the trilogy, and it was an extremely fun watch. The cinematography and score were all great, and it made the action scenes even more fun. Number 10 is The Fall. This is a short film by Jonathan Glazer, who also directed the masterpiece Under the Skin. This came out of nowhere, and when I heard about it, I watched it immediately, and it just blew me away. It's such a unique short, and I just had to put it in the top 10. For number 9, we have Marriage Story. This film was pretty rough. Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver give incredibly real performances, and I really hope they win an award for their work in this. The direction by Noah Baumbach was spectacular, and I cannot wait to show this film to more people. Number 8 is Knives Out. This was the most entertaining and interesting film this year, but it might be a little less fun on the second watch. Number 7 is Climax. This was a film that came out in 2018 but didn't get a US release until this year. This film horrified me and made me feel hypnotized. It makes you feel drained when it ends, and it's definitely worth a watch. Number 6 is The Irishman. Martin Scorsese did it again with this one. A lot of people are scared off because of this film's 3-hour runtime. I can totally see why, but for me this film was entertaining as hell, and it didn't slow down for me at all. At number 5, we have Uncut Gems. Adam Sandler killed it, and he gives one of the best performances of his career, but I still don't think it tops his performance in Punch Drunk Love. The score for this film was very memorable, and the cinematography was one of my favorite parts about it. At the time of me recording this, it's still in theaters, so don't miss it. Number 4 is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The first time I watched this, I kept picking it apart, and I was always looking out for things, but on a second viewing it was just so much fun to sit back and chill out with these characters. And that's one of my favorite things about this film. It not only feels like you're just chilling out with them, but it feels like you've been taken into a time machine back to the 60s. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is entertaining from start to finish, and it's a film I'm probably going to watch many more times in the future. Number 3 is Midsommar. Ari Aster hit it out of the park again with this one. I love everything about this film. I talked a lot more about it in my QMR, but All I really have to say is that it blew me away. Alright, so for a very long time I was conflicted between two films. I saw two films this year that blew me away just as much as the other. It was super difficult to decide which film was the best of the year, and I think I've come up with a decision. So at the number 2 spot, we have Parasite. Parasite does what many of my absolute favorites do, and that's blending extreme intensity with hilarious dark humor. There are moments that have your heart racing as fast as lightning, but then 2 minutes later, there's a scene where you can't help but laugh. From the very start, this film hooks you in and keeps you guessing the whole way through. However, it's not just a nail-biting thriller. This film also has so much to say about the lower and upper classes. Our protagonists, a lower class poor family, are conniving and cruel, yet we root for them because of their intellect and the fact that we can get behind their struggles. Opposed to the rich family whose house they sneakily work in, who are far more laid back and oblivious, but nevertheless they show contempt for others they consider below them. As well as all of this, technically this film is perfect. The stunning cinematography conveys emotion tremendously and is just a feast for the eyes. The tight editing wastes no time, and the pacing is just as perfect as it could be. Bong Joon-ho knows how to direct a film, and this is easily one of his best efforts. I can't wait for more people to see this. I genuinely think this movie is impossible not to like. And my number 1 favorite film of the year is, The Lighthouse. It was clear the moment both actors appeared on screen that this was going to be something special. This is the result of everyone behind the film being on the same page and giving their absolute best. It's not something where I can pick my favorite aspect. It's all overwhelmingly good. First off, the unique, almost square aspect ratio immediately sets the claustrophobic atmosphere that helps you feel the confinement of the island. The entire movie is set in one location, which could potentially be a challenge to keep interesting. However, the shot composition, blocking, lighting, editing, sound design, and basically every element behind the production is mysterious and beautiful enough to keep it compelling for the entire runtime. It's probably one of the most visually creative and striking movies I've ever seen. I loved how the camera remained mostly static, with the occasional camera movement used to underline the impact of the scene. It was clear throughout this film that this was not the end of the experience, with sound and images so specific and beautiful that it's not gonna leave my mind anytime soon. It was clear the moment the credits rolled that this was going down as a classic. So yeah, if it wasn't obvious to everyone already, Cats is the worst movie of the year and one of the worst films of the decade. There is not a single positive quality about this film, and I hope every single person involved in the making of this film feels embarrassed. I went into way more detail into my QMR, so if you want to hear more, go check that out. Arctic Dogs. This is a children's film, and it shows. It feels and looks like no one cared about the production of this film except for Jeremy Renner. Yes, Jeremy Renner cared about the production of Arctic Dogs. He loved it so much that he made a song about it. Chasing a dream, only fools like me would have found. I'm just going no matter where I go. This film had the worst animated opening of all time, and yep, I was there opening night. My friend really wanted to see this film for some reason, so I saw it with him. And it was the most depressed I've ever been while watching a movie. Ma is incredibly uninspired. There was not a second where I felt scared, tense, or uneasy, as even the climax felt predictable and fairly safe. This could have had so much more substance if implemented correctly, but it seems like the crew behind this one were dead set on going the exact opposite way they should have. The Lion King. I could nitpick, but overall this just doesn't make any sense with real lions. Which is an even bigger problem when the real lions are never 100% convincing. Very little of the comedy works because the animated creatures aren't expressive enough to sell the jokes. The exceptions are Timon and Pumbaa, but honestly this film will not age well. Aladdin. This film is super original. I wonder how Disney hasn't thought of it before. Pet Sematary. There's not a lot to say about Pet Sematary. I honestly forgot about this film's existence until I started making this video. All there really is to say is that if you've seen the original, there is no need to see this. Hellboy. I'm so glad this film flopped, because I don't want to see David Harbour as Hellboy ever again. This film is so boring, and it's actually so painful to get through. The best thing that I can say is that some of the action is entertaining, but like, that's it. Like 2 huge horns growing from your head, Hellboy is one hell of a headache. Happy Death Day to you. I really didn't like the first Happy Death Day, so when I heard how Blumhouse was making a sequel, I wasn't at all excited. I'm happy to say, though, that it's not as bad as the first. Maybe I was just a little more entertained, but that's all I can really say. Brightburn. This was so childishly written, juvenile, and hateful. One of the ugliest movies I've seen this year inside and out. The Dead Don't Die. I was actually really excited to see this film. I was expecting a fun, gory zombie flick, but as it went on, I knew that was not what I was going to get. In Fabric was produced by A24, and it's definitely the worst from them. It had a good start, but quickly started to lose my interest. And by the last hour, I was constantly checking the time for when it would end. Velvet Buzzsaw. I was looking forward to seeing this, but as soon as I started watching it, I realized it was going to be a bumpy ride. This film wasn't at all scary, and the concept just felt like a Goosebumps episode. Escape Room. This movie was mildly entertaining, but forgettable. Good Boys is another unfunny comedy, and it's way too reliant on kids saying swears and being completely oblivious to sex, toys, and terms. It Chapter 2. I went in with low expectations and I ended up enjoying this quite a bit. The most common flaw people had with this was the runtime, saying it was way longer than it needed to be. The runtime didn't bother me too much, but I think some aspects could have been taken out without affecting the plot. I think my main flaws with this film are probably some unnecessary scenes, the CGI, and the ending. The film seemed to be a lot more reliant on CGI, and for me, I think it ruined some parts of the movie. The ending wasn't great, in my opinion. I won't spoil it, you know what, I don't care, the movie's out. If you haven't seen it, you know, it's your fault. They just keep calling him a clown, and then he shrinks into a baby, and they rip out his heart and crush it. It was the dumbest shit I've ever seen. So for the ending, it feels like they just didn't want it to end because the conclusion kept going on and on. Overall, I don't think It Chapter 2 was a complete waste of time, but I just don't see myself rewatching it anytime soon. Glass. Unbreakable and Split are some of my favorite films of all time, and the way the story concludes almost felt overwhelming. It seems they concluded almost everything that was a mystery, but that's not always good. Some things would have been better if they never addressed it. The writing was really bad, and so was that ending. I have no motivation to see this film again. Zombieland Double Tap. The plot wasn't interesting and the jokes didn't land with me, and I would have felt the same if they didn't make this. Captain Marvel. It's just another boring and stupid superhero movie. I really wanted to like this, but the film was just so bland and dumb that I can't even call it decent. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. This film I wanted to see because of how much I loved the books as a kid. The story isn't bad, but it can be boring at times. Some of the horror elements kind of shocked me in how violent it is, and you know, how they got away with a PG-13 rating. The Rise of Skywalker. This is not the worst Star Wars, but it's far from being the best. First off, this film has no stakes or consequences. When they supposedly kill off Chewbacca, they quickly cut and show that he's still alive, which just eliminates consequences or stakes. Hey guys, he's not dead. He's not dead. Wipe your tears away, he's not dead. Another thing too was how Finn said how he really wanted to tell Rey something, and it keeps coming back up throughout the film. It's so funny, but then at the end of the movie, it just never comes back. We don't know. Looking back to the first film in this trilogy, I was really looking forward to see what Finn would do, but now that it's the last film, it sucks to see that he hasn't done much more than screaming Rey's name. Toy Story 4 was okay. Everything in it was just okay. I don't really have much to say about it. Spider-Man Far From Home was a pretty solid superhero film. A lot of people called it the best, but I wouldn't think that. The plot is corny, but it's self-aware, and I feel the overuse of CGI really hurt this film, and many action scenes feel very fake. Shazam was a wonderful surprise. This film was very funny and quite entertaining. I talked a lot more about it in my QMR. Avengers Endgame. This film I really enjoyed the first time around. It was a fun and great end to the Marvel story. I really don't think I'm going to continue watching the next Marvel films though, that they come out with. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll rewatch this either. For me, it's just going to get more and more boring with each rewatch. but it's still a solid superhero film. I really wanted to start talking about TV shows that I watch and hopefully encourage some people to check them out. The 2 shows I'm going to talk about did not come out this year, but I watched them this year, and I really wanted to get my thoughts out about them. So the first show that I watched was Breaking Bad. I finally got around to watching it, and it's just incredible. Believe the hype, and definitely believe what everyone is saying about it. To start off, a really incredible aspect of this show is the acting. There's not a single bad performance, and everyone gives it their all throughout the entire show, and it gave us some of the most iconic scenes of all time.
Hear me out, please!
The cinematography is outstanding. The time-lapse transitions are my favorite, and there are so many shots engraved in my mind from the show. The writing is also perfect. It's quite possibly the best aspect of this show. Overall, this show is one of the finest works of art I have ever seen, and I encourage anyone and everyone to check this show out. The other show I watched was Twin Peaks, and for the longest time I really wanted to watch this show. This show was made by David Lynch, and ever since I saw his film Eraserhead, I was just so interested in his style that I wanted to see what else he has done. And I am very happy to say that Twin Peaks is up there with Breaking Bad as being one of my favorite shows ever. The mystery behind the death of Laura Palmer, getting to know all these quirky characters from the town, and all the crazy supernatural stuff going on just kept me hooked. Season 1 I think was a lot better than the second, but that doesn't mean the second season is bad. It's far from it. But there was a lot of filler in it, and at times it sadly left me bored during some episodes. Overall, for me, I would highly recommend this show, especially to anyone who likes David Lynch. If I were to score both seasons, I would give Season 1 a 10 and Season 2 a 9.
You know, this is, excuse me, a damn fine cup of coffee. I've had, I can't tell you how many cups of coffee in my life, and this is one of the best.
You know, I'm trying to get into video games the same way I am with movies and TV. I have a huge learning curve though, because I know nothing about the making of video games or the process. I really wanted to try out, but couldn't get around to it, Death Stranding. I heard some good things about it, and all these people like Edgar Wright and Guillermo del Toro were in it, and so that interested me. Untitled Goose Game I played for a little bit. I didn't get very far into it, but it caught my interest for a while. I played 2 Mario games, the second Mario Maker, and the other was Mario... What was it called? New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, Jesus Christ. I played through those games a bit with my friends. I enjoyed Mario Maker more though. Pokemon Shield was another game. My friends really wanted to get me into Pokemon this year. I played through it a bit. I was a little bored with it at times, but yeah, I mean, maybe I'll play it a little bit more in the future. I played some VR games. One I played was Boneworks. It was an incredibly fun, physics-based game. It was sort of like Half-Life. That's the end of the list for you. Some games, some movies, some TV. This was an incredible year for film, honestly, and we got so many great movies. I wish I could have seen more, but unfortunately I just didn't have all the time in the world. Anyways, that's all I've got. I don't know when I'm going to make another video, because I'm working on a screenplay for a very cool film project. Also, my first film, Smithereens, I have been submitting it to a few film festivals, so if you want to be updated on screening dates and locations, you can follow me on Twitter. I hope I'll be able to make another ranking video like this next year. I don't know. I might get drafted for World War III if that actually happens.